This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Welcome to the Monday, November 20th, 2023 meeting of the Energy Advisory Committee for the City of Easthampton. I'm Jamie Paquette, the chair of the committee, joined by committee members John Pepe, Connie Dawson, Cassie Eckhoff, our newest member, Member of the Public Bruce Bowles, and Cassie Traggett, the conservation agent for the City of Easthampton. So officially welcome to Cassie for our first official meeting. As a member, as far as we know. We said city council maybe hasn't approved. I don't remember exactly what
really got some dirt on me.
Yeah. Probably not. But Cassie is also a member of the Economic Development and Investment Industrial Commission. Thank you. So yes, you're going to help us provide a bridge to that group, hopefully, and like help us maybe coordinate some common cause items with them. So I know there's some interest on their side, some energy related pieces. So excited for that possibility. And to get us started, we will do a quick review and approval of the minutes from the October 16th meeting.
I would do better and get them out sooner. I'm sorry.
Prompt you a little earlier too, but I did get a chance to review them real quick. I don't know if anybody else did.
Most of it.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the?
We approve the minutes from our
September meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Minutes are approved. And Connie, are you submitting those regularly to the city clerk afterwards? Great. I haven't been getting any notices from them, so I assume so. But just want to make sure. Great. All right. Well, so for the public speak portion, I believe as Cassie mentioned to me, we have some guests or a guest from Mass CEC. This wasn't officially on the agenda, so I figure we'll bring this in now to talk a little bit about the heat pump program and the Columbia gas settlement. If I have that correct. So Meg, you want to introduce yourself? That's the name I'm seeing.
Yes. Yeah. I'm Meg Howard from the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center. Thank you for having me at this meeting. I figured I'll just start with some very high level background on why I'm here and what I'm talking about today. And I apologize if this is totally redundant. So cut me off if it is, but just figure that's a good place to start. When Eversource purchased Columbia Gas, they included as part of that settlement an agreement to allocate $500,000 to the state's Department of Energy Resources for outreach and enhanced electrification incentives for customers in municipalities that have been affected by the Northampton moratorium. That's the language that was in that settlement. Those municipalities are Easthampton and Northampton, just those two communities. So that's the $500,000, as I said, for targeted outreach and enhanced electrification incentives. Although the label of that language in the settlement is heat pump incentive program. So the stated use is targeted outreach and enhanced electrification incentives. The label of it specifically calls out heat pumps, but I think there is an opportunity to look a little more broadly than just heat pumps, although of course heat pumps are a key strategy to electrifying a building. You may have noticed the funding is going to the state's Department of Energy Resources, and then I'm coming to you today from the state's Mass Clean Energy Center. So the Mass Clean Energy Center, or Mass CEC, is a quasi-state agency that is really focused on economic development around climate adaptation and mitigation. And we have partnered with Department of Energy Resources to be the ones to actually put out the request, to actually spend these funds and implement the funding. So in terms of how the funds will be spent, we have been in discussions with folks from Department of Energy Resources, as well as Cassie and others from Northampton. So sort of be a collaborative decision on how the funds are spent, but it would kind of get funneled. We expect that the funding would get funneled through the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center. So that's the high level background on what this funding is. And then I was going to go into what we're currently proposing and next steps from here, unless you have any, but I'll pause for a moment for questions before I do.
Close the doors. Sorry, I can't get up because I'm worried it's going to jostle it. But if someone can close the door, but don't go this way because you might jostle it. So sorry. Apologies. I just know it's loud. But yeah, I don't know if anybody else had any other questions.
So I have a question. Is this, when you said this was to deal with the impact that people had because of the moratorium? So is this sort of looking back to people who may have had to make adjustments to their plans or whatever because they couldn't get gas, or is this sort of moving forward?
That's a great question. The actual settlement language, I don't think comments on that question one way or the other. As we've been talking to it up to this point, it's more, we've been taking more of the latter approach of moving forward or looking forward and not necessarily trying to find customers who may have been directly impacted by the moratorium, but taking the settlement funding as an opportunity to serve moderate income households as well as rental households, probably by engaging with the landlord, but with the aim of serving renter households. So that's been our priority. And now I'm going to start to transition to what we're thinking, if that, unless anyone else has any questions.
No, I think the background you gave aligns with what we've heard and sort of understand so far. So excited to get more into the implementation side of things.
Great. So yeah, like I was saying, we, up to this point, and so far plan moving forward to focus on specifically targeting moderate income and rental households. And I think at this point where we see a big need for or a good opportunity for the funding to plug into the existing landscape is really around coordinated delivery of electrification. So we think that the state, through Mass Save and the utility efficiency programs, has some pretty generous incentive programs, including programs that are targeted for moderate income households. And when I'm saying moderate income households, for these discussions, I'm referencing households at 60 to 80% of the state median income. And as we're talking, I should have had this ready, but I'll look up and drop into the chat a link of what those income limits are. But that's really going on Mass Save's definition of moderate income, and that way we can leverage the enhanced incentives they have for households at that income range. They do also have offerings even more generous at the below 60% of state median income. The reason we would think to target that 60 to 80% range is those are the households where Mass Save has fairly generous incentives, but doesn't offer that coordinated delivery. They sort of is like the incentives are out there, but the households have to figure out how to get them and figure out how to coordinate a weatherization contractor and a heat pump contractor and put all those pieces together. Whereas for households below 60% of state median income, they work with the local community action agency, and that project is more managed and quarterbacked by the community action agency. And so some of that coordinated delivery is already happening. So Mass Save has seen pretty low uptake for their enhanced offerings for households in the 60 to 80% range, and similarly has seen pretty low uptake of landlords for their incentives. And we think in both of these demographics, just the barrier to kind of putting together all these different pieces is a significant barrier on par with just, of course, the capital cost of doing so. But I think the coordination and the time involved in it is the barrier that we think we could really target with these funds. So what we would be looking to do moving forward is put out a request for proposals or a solicitation for a vendor to work directly in Northampton and Easthampton and do outreach to recruit these households and then serve the role of playing that coordinated delivery kind of from the first intake of the customer through their work with a weatherization contractor, a heat pump contractor, help those households kind of knit together the different pieces of the process. Another piece we'd like to add on to this pilot would be having that same vendor provide no-cost targeted air sealing for participating households. So Mass Save already provides targeted air sealing, they already provide air sealing in households where they would come in and kind of seal up in common air leakage points in a home, which is often, where the home meets the foundation. That kind of rim joist is a common point of air leakage, or around doors and windows. So some of the known key points they're already coming in. And for these households at moderate income, doing no cost air sealing. So the piece we'd like to add on here is just doing a more targeted approach where you actually use tools to see like how much is this home leaking and then where is the leakage coming from. So instead of just targeting the points, there's it's very common for households to leak at this point. We'll seal it, but actually trying to use some tools like a blower door to see how much is this home leaking and where is it leaking, and really that's why we're calling it targeted air sealing. Try and get that home as tight as possible. And we think that would pair well with a home transitioning to heat pumps. So you really don't have any of those, or as much as possible, you cut back on the drafts that are coming in, and the household will be comfortable with heat pumps. I should say, I think, you could put heat pumps in a very leaky home and design them so they'd still be comfortable, but I think you'll get a much more efficient and well-designed project if you can cut back on all those drafts and leaks as much as possible up front. In terms of next steps, I think we would be hoping to release that request for proposal or solicitation for a vendor by the end of this year, and then accept applications probably at some point early next year and make a decision, contract with them, and then from there go forward and launch the proposal. One open question for us at this point is how much to concentrate the funding on some of those services I've just described around coordinated delivery and targeted air sealing, sort of the hand-holding and case management for these customers to help the moderate income households and renter households move forward, versus how much to reserve funding for incentives. So as we talked about, Mass Save already offers pretty generous incentives for both of these types of households. But we could choose to increase those incentives further. So that's one question that we're still figuring out, and would certainly be interested in further feedback on how much to focus on the kind of coordinated delivery, hand-holding support versus just putting more funding towards these projects. So again, I think I'll maybe pause here and just see if there's questions or clarifications.
Yeah, what do you see as the time frame for how long this would be, like a year-long project or longer?
I think it would depend on how quickly the funding, I'm pausing because it would depend on how quickly the funding gets sort of allocated and taken up. And I don't have I'm not confident how quickly that would go. So I think
some of that would be answered by how much do you put into incentives versus execution, right? I think if you're going to add money to incentives, that money's going to go faster on top of execution. So then it would be a shorter term sort of opportunity. I guess another question sort of related is, who do you see responding to the RFP, right? Is it going to be the existing sort of community networks that already do this for the low income bracket, or you think there are other groups out there who would want to do this? And with the amount of money on offer, if they don't have an existing program around doing stuff like this, are they going to be able to create one efficiently, with that amount of money on offer, and then no guarantee that there's more at the end once it runs out?
Yeah, those are great questions. Maybe on the first point about like timeline and scale, I think you're exactly right that depending how much we put towards incentives would depend on how many households we could serve. So we've mapped out some scenarios with a higher incentive per customer of maybe adding 5,000 per customer on top of existing incentives. And there we might be looking at serving more like 50 households, which I do think would probably be claimed within a year of launching. And then at the upper end of, reducing it, maybe if it's 1,300 per household, then we could be looking at more like 100 households. And at that point, I'm not sure. Could still go within a year, especially if the vendor is successful in outreach. It's still not a huge number, but might go on a little longer. And then in terms of who we expect would reply, I think it could certainly be the community action agency that's already running the low income programs. We're doing a public procurement, so I don't want to appear biased ahead of time, but I think it's fair to say that I agree with you that probably vendors who would apply would have some background where they feel like they could build on work they've already done to jump into this space. I do think there are a couple companies in this space, and again, I don't want to in any way prejudge a public procurement, but for example, we are aware Center for Ecotechnology is, looking at decarbonization work on a residential level, and already has some programs built up, as does another group, Abode Energy Management. We're currently working on a pilot with, sort of statewide, not geographically focused like that, but not to say those are the only ones, but those are a couple organizations that we're familiar with that do have some background they could build on. And I think for those organizations and others, this would be an attractive opportunity, even if it's not a huge budget or necessarily a super long runway, just to gain the experience. I think there's probably a place that a lot of organizations see increasing focus from the state. So I think having the chance to work in your communities on this topic, I could be wrong, but I'm hoping and guessing that it will be attractive to some vendors, because they'll see, even if it's not directly through follow-on funding here, or even if that's uncertain at this point, that there would be, use for kind of building up these kinds of experiences within their organization.
So one question that I have, I'm thinking about buildings that need help with insulation. What about their windows? I mean, a lot of my personal experience living in an old building, windows are as important as insulation. I know that's very expensive.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we hadn't talked in depth about whether some of this added funding could be applied towards windows, but I can take it back to the team. I think that's a very fair question of like, maybe that's where the gap is for some of these households.
Would it be that the targeted air sealing would kind of relate to the windows potentially, in that just at least it let people know if they were the problem? And then the other piece was that did you say earlier that settlement money had to be used towards this electrification or the heat pump element?
That's a good note, Cassie. The funding says it's labeled heat pump incentive program, and then it says it's to provide targeted outreach and enhanced electrification incentives. So I think applying the money towards windows could be a bit of a stretch, but as you said, we're going to try and make the stretch already to targeted air sealing, which I think is going in the same direction as windows. And just to say, our thinking, and we think, we have solid footing for this, is that to successfully electrify, you want the home to be as efficient and address the drafts and the leaks. So, and yes, Kathy, I think that it's a good point too, that the targeted air sealing can start to get at some of the issues of windows. But if there's single pane windows, or, at some point, just it may be worth, the windows themselves may be worth replacing. So I can definitely take that back and mull on it further.
Thinking about this, I know that there is a program to get a no interest loan to replace windows if they have lead paint on them. You can get it all done, and local banks are part of the program, and then when you sell the house, you pay it back. Basically, is how it works. I don't know, and that's about lead paint, but it would be wonderful if we could develop a program like that as part of what we're talking about holistically, because I do think that a lot of the houses in Easthampton are very old and leak a lot. So just a thought.
My feeling is that the more interesting research kind of question for future policy development is the coordination. And if you're talking about spending money subsidizing the actual heat pumps and the weatherization versus the more money to be spent on the coordination fund, it seems less understood to me how much the coordination part affects people's decisions. And if you could supply it, would you get a good response, an uptick in adoption? Whereas it seems like there's got to be some kind of data out there which indicates whether the pure cost of the system and how people respond relative to their income and the incentives that are available versus the cost of the system. That seems like it's less tricky than the coordination question. So, from what I hear now, I'm more in favor of the emphasis on the coordination. But what is the approach with landlords? You did mention landlords, and related to that, I'm curious for clarification of that 80 to 100% of median income. Is that median income of all people or median income of homeowners?
It is. Sorry, the last part of the comment got cut out.
Talk about 80%, 100% of median income for the entire population of Massachusetts. You're getting into a lot of people don't own homes, as opposed to targeting 80 to people who have homeowners who have 80 to 60% of median income. Slightly different focus. I'm just one clarification.
Yeah, so we would be looking to leverage mass save incentives for this demographic, and they define it as 60 to 80% of the state median income. Am I cutting out? Okay, 60 to 80% of state median income. I was losing you a little bit there, but I think I got the gist of the question. Statewide, so not just homeowners. I still think because it's, I think the numbers are still at a fairly high level, or I'll send you the link. I did pull it up now that we're talking. So for a household of 4, it would be between 87,000 and 116,000 would be this kind of demographic that we're looking for. For individual household of 1, that is significantly lower, between 45 and 60,000. So I'll send this link in the chat, and I can send it to Cassie too to share with you all. And then I think there was also a question about how it would work to target landlords. Oops, sorry, I can't chat, but I will email it to Cassie and she can share with everyone. I think we were thinking that we would make it open to any rental property on the theory that landlords are hard to motivate to act. And so trying to kind of pull in any of them that we could. Yes.
Affect the landlords. If any landlord, no matter whether it's an LLC or a resident who's renting their upstairs apartment, I just want to clarify, any landlord?
That's our current thinking, is any landlord.
And how much did you say it was available? 500,000?
It's not much.
Yes, 500,000 total.
And that's divided between Northampton and Easthampton,
Right.
that total. So
Which I then have a question about that, actually, if we're able to go into that for a second. Roughly the breakdown was supposed to be, Easthampton was supposed to get maybe around 150,000 of that, I think was the number I recall. So would the RFP or solicitation implementation be written so that that money needs to be divided on some level between the communities and tracts? Versus somebody coming in and just spending all $500,000 in Northampton, let's say.
Or here.
Or here, but I want to be fair to them too.
That's right. You could maybe, I think we could certainly put in some requirements around, like a minimum share of households in each community.
Yeah.
Sorry, I lost the comment there.
Side comment. I'd say it's kind of an obvious concept about how to get a 2-community grant and have it be meaningful is to have some proportionality.
I thought that was already in it.
stuff's not finished yet.
Yeah.
They're talking about for the final RFP, which is gonna be this document.
Oh, but I thought that the agreement with
The
Eversource
settlement.
was very specific about the breakup of the money, the percentage that Easthampton got and percentage that Northampton got.
Yeah, they might, I don't
I think you told me that.
I might have told you that, but I don't know.
Anyway,
Yeah, I think that's where I got it from as well, but again, now that they're looking at running a program jointly, like we're not gonna do our own program and Northampton's not gonna do their own. So now this money's been basically lumped back together.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I
So
didn't
now it's sort of
understand.
like,
Okay.
now we need to make sure that carve out exists on some level so that, that money is being distributed through both communities.
I haven't seen in the settlement language itself a carve out in particular to each community, but I will double check if it's there. Certainly would want to comply with any of that. And then I think, we'd be happy to put, whether or not it's there, we'd be happy to put in a carve out so that the vendor is working with a representative amount from each community, and happy to stay in touch and make sure that language is in there and meets the goals you all have.
I do, another question I have is just how will the individuals or the households be chosen? Is it gonna be a criteria and is it?
Well, 60-80% income.
Well, but yes, but what if they get, the
What's the
truth is,
average?
there aren't gonna be this is not a lot of money in truth.
Right.
To do
I was
this.
just saying 50 to 100 households.
So I'm just curious, once you have that pool, then how do you decide, is it first come, first serve, or just curious?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. What we're currently thinking, and again, very open to feedback, is that we would open it to households that were either in that moderate income demographic or owned by, that they were rental properties, and they were looking to have a heat pump transition for their home, in the near future, that they were looking to make a transition to heat pumps. Then this would be a pathway open to support them on that journey, I think. And then, as we were just discussing, with certainly could have carve outs for the 2 municipalities to make sure those stayed proportional. And then beyond that would be first come, first serve. And I think we would expect there might be some level of attrition where some folks raise their hand and said, yes, I do want heat pumps, but might fall out along the way. I think as we talk through different options, that seem like sort of inevitable, but would look to get folks in the door who were planning on doing that heat pump transition and support them in that transition.
To clarify, I'm sorry asking these basic questions, but anyone who participates in this will also have to come up with money, because this program is not going to actually pay for the heat pumps and all the things that go along with that. It'll
start with the answer. Yeah, Mass Save will still kick in their normal percentage,
right,
which is enhanced at the 60 to 80% level. It's more than what a 100% person would get.
right.
So you're still getting a significant reduction. Now, this program might then add extra incentives on top to help reduce that cost even further. That's part of the discussion. But there's probably still some out-of-pocket cost involved,
right,
depending on the amount of work that needs to be done, how much the incentive covers, and all those things.
Yeah.
So that varies. So yes.
So that obviously has to be made very clear to people who think they'd like to participate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. And will we be able to tell them once you've made some of these decisions that you're talking about, typically what it would cost? Like a single family home with 3 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms, whatever, so they have a sense of what they're signing up for.
I think it'll be good to talk about how to communicate that, because I think in other pilot programs around heat pump adoption, individual homes can vary so much. And I think one thing we haven't touched on, but we would be interested in, is if a vendor could bring in some partner installers, and we wouldn't think it would be just like one selected installer, but sort of if installers would sign up and be interested in the program, they could be added as partner installers. So not sort of an exclusive list, but if companies would raise their hands to be partner installers, they could join the program. And I think that might help give, we could also work with them to communicate around what kind of estimates to share. I think it's hard because I've seen such wide ranges from different vendors, and then also for different homes, if, this actually triggered an electric service upgrade and you needed to do ductwork upgrades versus this was pretty straightforward and you could just drop in here. So I think we would definitely want to communicate around that. But is, in my experience, tricky to kind of give exact numbers. So, we need to be sort of a range. And that's where I do think we would expect and wouldn't, that there may be some attrition that I think we'd want to communicate up front. Like you were saying, there would expect some amount of copay, try and message what the range of that might look like. And then if there's some attrition, I think that would be unfortunate, but also kind of good learning. One other thing we haven't talked about is that I am not sure it can be part of this, but we would love to see a vendor either come in or for, when they respond to our request for proposals, or else after they're selected, making partnerships with local lending institutions. There is already the Mass Save 0% heat loan, so that exists, but making sure that those partnerships are strong and there can be communication around individual cases, and their financing needs can be served as well.
Meg, I want to be mindful of your time. I appreciate you being here. You still have a few more minutes here to go through a couple more things.
Yeah, I can stay on till 4. I don't want to take over your meeting but I told Cassie I need to drop at 4, but I'm happy to stay on till then.
Yeah, so Cassie, let me have you. Go ahead.
So I just want to make a point that I just had them installed in my very generic house. And so it was, I paid $4,000 then I got the $10,000 rebate. So it was a $14,000 thing. But if everybody who's in this program gets basically to have to pay $4,000, we can still only do 125 houses.
If we were giving them covering that cost for them, well, that doesn't even cover the cost of like actually running the program,
Right.
like paying a vendor to do that.
Yeah.
It's all incentive.
Yeah.
Which you can't really do. No, it's gonna be small, and that actually gets to something else that another question I wanna ask, and I don't wanna cut you off if you.
No, I'm done.
Because, one of the things we talked about the last meeting or two is, looking at our opportunities for grants and things like that, like, right, green communities and elsewhere. And Meg, maybe you know something around this, but like, is there a possibility that we could seek out other funding to make this program more robust or make it a longer term thing? Obviously, settlement money is a one-time deal. We're not gonna get any more out of that, but do you see an avenue, or would Mass CEC be able to help, like, find, a way to extend the program beyond this 500,000?
Yeah, I think that's definitely something on my mind. I don't want to promise anything. I don't know of any opportunities that I feel confident saying like, oh yes, then this would be the next source of funding for this program. So I don't want to promise anything or set any false expectations, but I think that would definitely be something, we were looking out for, including especially around federal incentives, that came out of the IRA or anything like that. That's a particular area I have my eye on, but at this point, I don't feel certain. Like I can say, like, yes, there will be a next source of funding to continue and expand the program.
The IRA will have some enhanced incentives for lots of things, heat pumps included.
I would just add the potential other avenues, and I'm just as unsecurely saying it, but there's also the new climate leader, like, program or designation that you could have under green communities, which we are not yet.
Right.
But once we finish a climate action plan, that will be a major piece that we will have towards going for that, which this project and like continuing this project might fit better under that, but it's really, there's a lot of question marks there. But I would say that I would plan to incorporate this as an action in the climate action plan as something, so there's at least a little support to like keep going or try to keep going if we can figure it out on our end, even once this money's over. Sorry, that was like the only other thing I could think of.
No, that's good. I mean, I keep coming back to green communities because I know the mandate there is like, let's do something measurable that like gets greenhouse gases down. And this is something that you can really point to measurables, right? You can say, okay, this much, or at least some approximate, like this much energy is being saved by, the implementation of this program,
right,
and the work that's actually being done. So, I wonder if even just to augment the time frame that we're talking about here, however long that is, a year, let's say, or 18 months, just to get some more money into the program that we could spend, on the Easthampton side through a grant like that. And I don't know how easy it would be to roll into something that we're doing a separate RFP for and just sort of like tack it on to the end and be like, oh yeah, here's like an extra $100,000 that we could just do that with. But something like that, like, would seem to make sense, and like do more good with something like that than trying to create a whole other program or do something else with a green community grant that's going to be, you take more time or more effort.
Right. Another thing, when Cassie was telling us about this program last meeting, she said that Mass Save was planning to provide some sort of similar program in the future. Is that actually in the works? I know there've been a lot of complaints about Mass Save.
So Mass Save is current. I don't want to speak for them, but they are currently going through their regular 3-year planning process where they're looking ahead to what they're going to offer in 2025 through 2027. So they're starting that process now. They're going to file a preliminary plan in March and then a final plan in October of next year, 2024, for approval to start working in 2025. So I think that's where I believe they are getting a lot of pressure to continue focusing on both of these demographics, moderate income households and landlords. And I think that they are intending to increase their offering, at least starting in 2025, or increase their support of those households. So I don't want to speak for them, but I expect that they will have increased support, and we should know more, I think, by next spring and certainly by next October of exactly what that will look like. So that was something I was thinking too of, I think what we're doing here, we hope will shape that broader work, not only in Easthampton and Northampton, but what they'd offer statewide.
All of this is geared towards a residential. Is there anything commercial, industrial, or I know this isn't a lot of money, so you're probably trying to get the most impact on a residential level, but I know a lot of businesses were impacted by that moratorium.
Mm. Yeah, we were just thinking of serving residential, and I don't think I said this, but I think we had been thinking specifically smaller residential, just in terms of like having a vendor that could speak to the building typology. So probably like 1 to 4 unit residential. We were thinking to focus there, just as you were saying, for the sake of focusing with a sort of limited pool of money.
The only thing I'd add is I think this could be really valuable in that it is a small number of households that would be impacted by it. But one of the things that was spoken about at a community workshop for the climate action plan was that a big barrier was like it's just confusing to navigate.
Yeah.
So if we can learn how to best help residents through these few examples and see if this is helpful to them, that would help us better target how to go into the future, even just in Easthampton, but maybe that data could be helpful for Northampton and then, the state larger. So that to me, even though it's a small number, it's worth it, if that makes sense, to go this route if we can focus on that coordinated delivery piece, because it's going to be really valuable to learn about how to do it right.
Which brings me to another question. How are you going to determine the success of this program, the things that didn't go well, the recommendations for the future? What's the plan?
We would, we would ask for the vendor who's the one in the field doing it to provide quarterly and then a final report of, the metrics of how long it actually took them to do this coordinated delivery, and then what was the attrition for someone, for folks who came in the door and dropped off, and why did folks drop off, and sorry, I forgot something went down the wrong way. So I think it would be through those report outs quarterly as things were ongoing, so we could hope to kind of learn as we were going, and then kind of a final wrap up look at successes and failures kind of qualitatively, but also looking at the metrics of, what did this translate to? What did it cost? How many households were served?
Will you be getting any feedback from the households that are?
Yeah, I think that's definitely something we would like to include. Either, in survey form, or I think more ideally in kind of like a conversation, maybe in a wrap up visit. So I'll take that note back, but make sure that we're including that in some way.
I have one more thing to say about it. I'm just thinking about this. It would be so great if we could, at least with 1 or 2 of these households, get a video camera in there and really, from like sort of like this old house, like this is what we started with. These are all the things that happen when we're trying to make it happen. I mean, it just would be so great to just be able to show that. Easthampton Media.
We could do that, probably with an agreement with the owner, we find out who the participants are, just get them to sign off on it.
Right, we got to have somebody do the filming.
Yeah, we got Easthampton Media, I think.
Yeah.
We don't have to get the state to do that for us.
Oh, no. I'm just thinking, I've opted to conversation mode. I just thinking about it would be such a great opportunity to get that kind of, visual information for people.
Well, I'd almost like to include that in the RFP to some extent, like asking for something like that to be created as part of the process. I don't want that to, necessarily take up a huge chunk of budget. But because what we're talking about is, people are struggling to get people into the program at this level because of the implementation thing. So the more materials you can create to help people walk through that or help to assuage some of their reticence around it, or they're like, this is just too big for me to tackle on my own. And if you actually, you can watch a 4 or 5 minute video that sort of takes you like step by step. Here's what happened. Here's how it goes. Here's, the various incentives involved. And then that has a longer sort of legacy potentially, and has a longer lasting impact, that even if the program closes down, you still have these things that can go out and still, get people into that program, into the 68% range, even if we no longer have sort of this hand-holding implementation available to them.
Just a quick note, it's 350.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
But yeah, I will definitely take that back. I agree on the power of video case studies and testimonials. So I think whether it comes out of this 500,000, it's Mass CEC has other like consumer resources. So I might see if we could make sure we kind of tap some case studies coming out of those campaigns, or one way or the other. I think it would be a very valuable outcome of this work.
Yeah, potentially, like we do have Easthampton Media that works with the city here. I don't even know that we would have to pay them to do something like this. I don't know. That could be like a partnership that's kind of baked in from this side of things.
Easthampton Meeting put in heat pumps recently.
Did they?
Yes.
Over at Eastworks?
Yeah.
Or is that what I said? Okay, yeah.
excellent.
Good to know. Maybe we should have documented their own process. Okay, so you mentioned that you want the RFP solicitation potentially out by the end of this year, which gives us not a lot of time, or gives you not a lot of time to necessarily pull it all together. But we have one more meeting of this year. Would you be able to share a draft of that with us at some point once that's ready?
Yes. When is your next meeting? Sorry, I'm losing you. I cut out.
I believe.
Are you not hearing it anymore?
That's the 18th.
Yeah.
Maybe
Sorry, you
not.
said the 18th?
I'm gonna switch it so that the microphone is not bad anymore.
Okay, can you still hear us?
I can hear you. Yep.
Okay, so it was December 18th. is the next
December
meeting.
18th, yeah, through third Monday.
Yes. So big picture, to answer your question, we can definitely share a draft. I don't know how you all work in terms of if we were able to share something before that, or how you'd like to provide feedback. I think we could do it where we share a draft before, discuss in depth at the 18th. The only thing then is I feel like if there were significant changes or edits, it might then, push us back, because before we launch anything, we have to get a legal, go through some legal and finance approvals on our side.
Right.
So I think that would be one pathway, but it could mean putting it out early in 2024, which is also fine.
Yeah. What do you anticipate a date of having a draft ready at this point, or is that up in the air?
It's up in the air. Let's see. We have Thanksgiving coming up. I think we could have a draft by the 8th, or if not, then by the 15th, December 8th or 15th.
Well, if it's okay with the committee, you could email it to me, Meg, and then I can share it with you all, and then you can just email me back separately your comments. We can do it that way, hopefully before the 18th, if possible.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I don't anticipate we have like huge changes we want to make to it necessarily. I mean, we've got, I think, a good understanding from you today of kind of the basic scope and kind of what the expectations are. But there may be some things we want to add or change. But we could, if you're able to come back to the meeting on the 18th, we could talk through it then, or if there's not really too much significant, we just have some like minor feedback that Cassie shares and go from there. So I guess we can kind of see what it looks like once it's out there.
To keep the process on track and us on track, I think it might be good when you send that along to include a note about what portions of it you might particularly want feedback on and what portions are not really going to change or be subject to our suggestions. So we don't waste our time thinking up things that are not realistic and waste your time having to answer to those. Yeah.
That all sounds good. We will send a draft to Cassie then as soon as it's available and she can distribute it, and we'll try and highlight areas that we're particularly looking for feedback on.
Okay.
And then if it makes sense, we'll come back to the 18th, the meeting on the 18th.
Great.
Thank you.
Are you working with a similar group in Northampton on this as well?
I don't know if there's been some transition in Northampton. So the person, Chris Mason, who was their director of sustainability, has actually come to work for the state Department of Energy Resources. So now he's sort of involved in that side, but there's some new, recently started staff in Northampton. So we've been, or we gave sort of an initial briefing to them, but they're themselves kind of newer to things.
Okay.
So Easthampton should get in there first.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Sorry, what was that?
Never mind.
We're gonna jump in there and turn it in our favor before they.
Yeah, just kind of cross out any mention of Northampton.
Yeah, they can have the leftovers.
Doesn't matter. We're all working on the same carbon.
I know,
Right.
true, right. Carbon is
True,
carbon, I
true.
get it, right. If we're doing a green community grant, then we gotta worry about our own self.
Yep.
But otherwise, I agree. We're just supporting the expansion of good programs and less energy intensivity and electrification. Meg, thanks so much for coming.
This was really
Yeah.
helpful. I really appreciate your taking the time to talk to us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for taking the time. It was nice talking, and look forward to being in touch shortly.
Sounds good.
Great. Good luck with the draft, and we'll look forward to reading it when it's done.
Great. Thank you so much. Take care. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Nice.
I forgot to thank Columbia.
Columbia Gas,
Columbia
Oh,
Gas.
Lord.
Yeah.
being a
Oh my God.
non-existent corporate entity.
Who blew up half of
Columbia.
Probably
Columbia.
has ghost. Yeah.
Nothing to thank them for.
All right, well, that's good to see, that things are kind of close to some sort of fruition.
Yeah.
Activity, I think,
I'm fine. I'm getting kind of excited about where this could lead us. This could be
Right.
sort of the beginning of some really great.
well, that's what I really like it to be, and that's where I'm hoping
Yeah.
that, they're thinking about that, and Mass Save is obviously planning ahead, but
Yeah.
and the federal level, we got all these new incentives coming in, and so there's just a lot of that coordination, a lot of things for homeowners and landlords to try to wade through, and
And I think
complicated.
every time we have this conversation, this is the issue. It's the
Yes.
coordination. It's how to help people figure out how to do it and get the money and the incentives and understand what a heat pump is, all that stuff. It's great.
How does the outreach happen? How do you get people?
Well, that's a good question, yeah.
That is the
I think that's
question.
part of what whoever responds to this is gonna have to, do. They're gonna know how to do that because they're already doing it for the low income community. Potentially, whether it's a community action network or that's the one up in Greenfield. I don't know who does it around here. Maybe that's.
I would think there'd have to be some kind of public advertisement. So it doesn't.
Yeah, there'd be ways to do that, or they would maybe
favoritism or
post something, or they would maybe do a meeting, right, and invite people to come and say, hey, come learn about this new program you might be able to take advantage of.
It's just, now that everybody doesn't watch TV the way that, you used to be able to get ads on late at night and stuff like that, but most people don't see any of that anymore. It's very hard.
Ads,
And then there's a whole demographic that is on Facebook, but there's another demographic that isn't.
right.
So it's tough. It's really tough.
I'm curious if potentially Mass Saves has some data of people who have already reached out or kind of meet these criteria, and they clearly have shown a quasi interest in putting in heat pumps, they might be able to pull from that and then do some kind of targeted outreach. But yeah, I would expect whoever answers the RFP would come with a plan in their proposal that explains how they plan to do the
That's a good
outreach.
point.
Like, put it on them
That should be in the RFP.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's the impression that I got at least.
Like, the other weekend I was in Abishans and there was a Mass Save table
Yeah.
set
Oh,
up,
yeah.
and they were handing out information.
Yeah.
to let
Right.
people know. So is that something you could tie into?
I would think hopefully,
I
but
would
yeah, I
say
don't know.
so, yeah.
Yeah.
That or right, you know, things we talked about, like setting up at the farmer's market or setting up at,
Right.
you know, whatever community event is going on.
Mhm.
But, what's I guess maybe not Winterfest, right, or Cultural Chaos
Right.
or whatever we did with the Climate Action Plan. All right, well, I do want to get through some of the other stuff here. We are good to wrap up that conversation for now.
So the meeting started at 6 tonight?
Yeah,
Oh, Lord, I know. Sorry, I didn't expect that to go so long.
No, but it was very useful. I'm glad we did it.
Yeah, no, it's good to see like what's going on, again, for us to think about ways to make it effective, right, and ways that it can be built on, and what else we might be able to leverage to do that, both here in town or other groups. We'll talk about municipal aggregation. I do have an update here.
What does that mean?
So to catch you up, municipal aggregation is the process by which municipality can aggregate its electrical customers, both residential and business, and connect them directly with an electricity supplier as a way to potentially, not guarantee, save money, but also to increase the amount of renewable energy in the mix. Okay. So the city would contract with an electrical supplier and in this case offer some amount or some different levels of electrical products, right? So here's one that meets like that's basically the same as what you would get from Eversource, right? It has the bare minimum renewable content mandated by the state. Here's another mid-level, which is maybe going to be 25 or 30 or 50% renewables. And here's like a really super green level. All energy service companies can offer these things now if they go out and procure the renewable energy. But this would be a way for the municipality to organize it and manage it with one company.
We basically hire a company that will be the broker.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, well, they're the supplier. We're in contract with the supplier, and they have to have the renewable energy and the ability to offer different price. The good energy is the broker, basically, because they're the ones.
Right. That's what. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're the broker.
But they're not the ones supplying us the energy.
No, but they're the broker. That's what they're doing for us.
We already have them.
Right. They're already in place. We
on.
don't have a contract with a supplier yet.
No.
And that's what we go to do. So anyway, everyone gets opted in. You can opt out. Anyone can opt out, but all residents and businesses that are not already on a third-party supplier that are just getting Eversource as their supplier would be opted into the program. We can then set the amount of renewables that we want at those different price points or those different plans that everyone will be able to choose from. So it's something that the state mandates, or the state allows municipalities to do. There are hundreds of existing programs or municipal aggregation programs. Ours is, one that's been passed. The city council has approved it in a resolution. The mayor is on board. We've signed a contract with Good Energy. They don't charge us anything. They take a small cut from every kilowatt hour that would be in the program, a tenth of a cent. That's how they make their money on this. So to date, we've gone to the city council. We've contracted with Good Energy. We've worked through it with the mayor. We're at the point now where we're going public with this, or about to go public with this. So there's a public comment period that we will need to have. After that public comment period, there's also a open forum that we'll have to have as well, where people can come. At the end of that, we can then submit our draft plan to DPU. I think it goes with DOER too, but like DPU has a final sign off. So we were at the point where we had a draft plan put together by Good Energy that was submitted to us in the mayor's office. There was a portion of that had a draft or a sample, what's called an electric supply agreement, ESA. And the mayor had the city solicitor reviewing that and redlining that. That came back, shared that with Good Energy. They needed to maybe try to synthesize that. But this is where we have a new development, which is what this DPU is undergoing a lot of review of how they run the aggregation program and what their requirements are. And so now, as part of the draft plan that we need to submit, we do not have to have an electric supply agreement included in that. So we don't have to worry about this back and forth with the solicitor and Good Energy's lawyers about any of that to get a draft plan
Can you
going.
explain that to me again? Would you say that again?
Sure. So Good Energy created a draft plan for us, right? The draft plan is what we use to go public, to get the public comment period going.
Okay.
We can't put that out there until the mayor was happy with the language around everything with that. Part of the reason was because previously DPU required a sample, not the final, but a sample electric supply agreement, which would be the agreement between the city and electric supplier to be in there, even though we don't have an electric supplier. So there was the solicitor had a lot of comments and changes they wanted made on that sample agreement, the sample agreement with nobody, right? So but DPU was requiring that as being part of the draft plan submission. And I know this is really like getting into the weeds here. But I just had this conversation. I was on the phone with Good Energy for half an hour today talking through this. So we no longer have to have that sample ESA as part of our draft plan that's going to go
That's
to
good.
DPU. It is good. So that means that we can take the more basic version of the draft plan, start to work with that and get our public comment period going probably even by the beginning of December if we want. So there's then maybe need to open my email. So then there's like 3 different pieces of what needs to happen with that. Let me just find my email. That's not it. Okay. So, so there's 3 things. We're opening the public review period, which means we're settled with like sort of the draft plan that we have. Then there's holding a public hearing, which is typically at the end of the review period. And we approve a version of the plan to be submitted to DPU. Right, so we hold the public comment period on the draft plan. Now, those can be approved either by the city council or the mayor, or a mixture of those things. At this point, the city council signed off on the aggregation plan originally, or our ability to do one, right? Which then sort of puts it in
It
the
gives
mayor's
permission
hands.
to do.
Right, so I need to reach out to the mayor now and figure out if she just wants to say, yes, it's okay to open the public review period, or if she wants us to go through the city council for that. Same thing with like holding the public hearing. She can say, yeah, put it in front of the council and let them approve doing that, and then we can open it. Or she can say, no, I'm good with it. Let's just move forward. I approve it because she has the power to do that. And then approving the version of the plan to be submitted to DPU. Once again, the mayor can do that, or she could have us put the draft plan in front of the council, have the council review it, and then sign off on submitting it to DPU. So I kind of have to figure out what her preference is with that. They gave me the example of the city of Malden, where the mayor approved the first 2 things, the public review period and the public hearing. Then they brought it to the city council for approval of the draft plan to be submitted to DPU. So that's where we're at. If we do that in the public comment period, I think it's like 30 days. So if the mayor's like, yeah, let's just do it. I'll explain to her kind of some of the changes that have been made. There's some more stuff happening with DPU. DPU, right? They were suggesting these changes. They had a public comment period on those. Whatever changes they're making to how they implement the program have not been finalized yet. Okay. So we're operating with this assumption that some things are going to be based on what they put out there. There may be some things that change. And I'm not going to get too much further into the weeds with all that right now, just to say that most likely, once we get in front of DPU, there's gonna be about a 180-day period that they're gonna need to potentially review and okay our aggregation program, at which point, once that's approved, we can then go out to bid when we feel like it.
So that's a big change then. They've been saying it's been taking like 2 years to get through the DPU.
Right, yeah, well, this is this is what a governor change will do for you, to a degree, which is that, DPU's kind of had a fire lit under them, and been like, no, you can't be holding this up, you actually have to do some stuff here. So that's why they were soliciting comments, and not everything they're trying to do has been received favorably. Mm-hmm. And they still might push through with some of it anyway. There's some especially frustrating, limiting things for people that want to try to do an expedited aggregation plan. But again, that's probably not going to apply to us because don't feel the need to be in a rush for it.
Do you know whether the bill got out of committee? Where that stands?
That other one there, I don't know the aggregation legislation that was there. I don't know the status of that at the moment. Yeah. I know that Good Energy is putting together some workshops around some of the DPU changes and some technical stuff. That's going to be coming up next month, including something that's got to be in person, but be part of that. But I think they're doing some workshops for it. And sorry, I was just getting a lot of this stuff today. I'm trying to digest it in the time before the meeting. There's going to be a technical session that they're doing, and there's also some other. They said some other these guideline updates. So DPU is doing an in-person technical session on December 20th at their offices in Boston.
Wow.
That's not going to be so easy for a lot of people to attend. But that's where having a broker or a partner like Good Energy helps. They'll digest a lot of that and let us know what we need to know. So Good Energy is working on an updated draft plan for us. They said they would probably be able to get that to me maybe by the end of the day today, so that we have that to then potentially go forward with for the public outreach period if the mayor and or council approve.
Sounds good.
Fully clear?
I could say that all in my sleep.
Yeah, it's a big undertaking, but we're actually at a point. It's nice that we're the point we may actually be able to get it out in front of the public soon.
So is every municipality kind of at this, going through all this similarly, or
lots of them.
Easthampton?
No, not just Easthampton. Anyone else who's implementing a new aggregation plan, which Westhampton is doing one right now too. I think they were slightly ahead of us, and they were doing their public comment period earlier this year, if I recall. There are lots of municipalities that have existing plans and have already been approved by DPU. Some of the changes they're talking about on their level may affect existing plans, or when plans come up for renewal when they're going out to bid for new contracts and things like that. I don't know, and we don't need to know how that might affect an existing one. But right now, the changes that they're talking about are mostly for new aggregation plans and implementations. So anything that's coming to them for the first time. So once the municipality opts into it and does it, then they're kind of set up for it's mandated. Just the state, it just goes on. They can change it, they can amend it, they can stop the contract and put everybody back on Eversource if they want. Too. It's you don't have to keep running it in perpetuity, right? You sign a contract with an ESCO for. You can do a year, you can do 2 years, you can do 3 years, right? Or whatever. You look at what's advantageous from a pricing standpoint, and try to figure out, again, hopefully you're going to save money for people longer because you anticipate rates will go up. And that even some of and we've seen, a town like Quincy, I think, was advertising, hey, even our super renewable, 75% renewables or whatever it is actually cheaper than what people are paying for their basic electric service because we locked in this price 2 years ago or whatever. So, I just got the notice from Eversource today about prices going up on January 1st, as they do more or less every year again. Pending DPU, it's only 1 cent this time around, which is actually pretty good comparatively. It's only 6%.
It feels like health insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it goes back down in the summer too, though, right? They do lower it, they tend to lower it, I think, on July 1st and raises on January 1st. The vagaries of the supply markets and whatever, but again, when you contract with ESCO, you sort of you get away from all that because you're just locking in one price for every customer that doesn't opt out of the program. So most places are able to see savings because they are taking longer, subject to the up and down whiplash that Eversource will provide. So probably it may be between now and our next meeting that we actually get, the mayor approves and we actually go out for a public comment period.
Wow.
So by the time we're meeting again, we may be in the middle of that public comment period and looking at when we're going to put an actual hearing on the calendar for people to.
So when you say a public comment period, what are the logistics of that?
Good question.
Are we in charge of that?
We're not in charge of that. Good Energy is in charge of that.
I like it.
So yeah, I don't know, and that's a good question. And I didn't get around to that with them today because right now we're just. But I think there's certain notifications that have to go out.
Like in the paper.
Yeah, I think stuff like that, and then there'll be a mechanism. I don't know if it's going to be like a form or just like an email address or something like that to send feedback to, and then there's the actual public hearing that people can show up and voice their opinions in person.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so that's a good question. But no, it will not require us to do anything. And one of the other things I did talk about with them today is keeping in the contract the option for the operational adder, which is that extra smidge of money that we might put in there to tack onto the bills that might then help pay for something in the city budget. It would have to be, again, somebody that's either managing the aggregation program. Potentially it can fund renewable energy projects, but apparently their DPU's maybe trying to change that and cracking down on that a little bit because they have some other language and other programs around community solar that they're trying to get on control of and to, I don't know, be a little more, put everything under one umbrella, I guess. So potentially we could raise some money from this to pay for at least a partial position on a staff, or even a stipend or something like that for somebody who's going to manage the aggregation program for the city, which mostly would just be some basic management of the relationship with the energy supplier, and then maybe dealing with residents who have questions or people who are trying to opt
And the
out.
website, maintaining the
Maybe I think Good Energy is going to does all that because that's where they get their cut is from managing all that together. So yeah. So we're not going to be left to our own devices to do anything, especially us as a volunteer committee.
Yeah, because it's to their advantage, the more people that get signed up.
Yeah, the more kilowatt hours that run through the program, the more money they make. So they want to make it easy, they want to make it smooth, and they want to help answer questions and get people set up. So yeah, it's definitely in their best interest. They do, yeah, and they run lots of these across the state, and they're not the only company, but they do it here in other states. And I guess they have a new one. What was it, Milford tonight? There's a hearing, potentially a new one that's going to approve it at the city level. So it's just a little bit behind where we are. They're telling me so.
I know we are strapped for time, but how will, if we do decide to do this, does the mayor set that up? She decides to hire someone to take over this position?
Potentially, but it can only pay for the time that they're managing this program. It can't pay for a full-time energy or sustainability person or something like that that's also doing other stuff. The extra money that you raise through that can only be used in the administration of the aggregation program.
But it could be like many public jobs where your salary consists of monies from all these different pots. One of the pots would be that pot.
Yeah, so it could be an existing staff member who gets some sort of added, your duties now include this, and we're going to take this money. We can assume it's going to be 25% of your time, so we can raise 25% of your salary.
Right. Yeah.
This
Okay.
way. Or it could be, the way they put it to me, it could be one of us that gets a stipend however much we think that, a reasonable amount would be. No, it's not, because we're just being paid for our time to administer the program, right? I mean,
Is that another one of Cassie's?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder who in this room might be asked to do that.
Well, again, it could be one of us. It's just like a part-time thing that we do.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking about it.
That'd be cool.
No. Yeah. Any other questions on that at the moment?
I'm excited. This is really moving along.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, it's good. All right. So climate action plan. We've had some reference to this. Cassie, I know you put out some info on upcoming pieces. I know we're getting close to a few months from the final plan being put together here.
So just a quick overview, the climate action plan in theory is supposed to be done in February of 2024. So really the next steps, as it were, we just finished almost doing interviews for all the department heads. We have 2 people left we're trying to get a hold of. But, huge thank you to all the other departments in the city offices, because they were able to find the time to do it, and they were really productive conversations. So now that those are done, they're kind of crafting the final draft of the actions that are going to be listed in the actual plan, the action plan itself. And then our next community workshop, which is scheduled for December 7th, we'll be focusing on reviewing what those actions are that have been identified with residents and business owners and landlords who attend, and trying to go over, if they think there's things that we should add to those actions, how would they prioritize those actions, like things like that. Another piece that they're starting to fold into is that Weston Sampson was hired to do the hazard mitigation plan for the city, which is a separate plan. And we already have one, but it's like redoing it, essentially updating it. So they'll probably talk about that a little bit at this meeting as well, just because it's very similar topic matter, and it makes sense to kind of combine those efforts, so to speak. There'll be more with that plan later in the future, but that's just another note. So yeah, we're going to do that event, and then after that, we're going to refine the plan down again and kind of incorporate all those things and kind of get it a final draft, essentially. I'm assuming that draft would then come to you guys to look at. If everything there looks good, then it goes to city council for approval. And then we start working on, really that's like one of the last pieces. Somewhere mixed in there is developing this kind of residence guide as well. But hopefully after we do this last community workshop, that'll become more clear what that should be. So yeah, it's chugging along. I guess my big thing is seeing if there would be interest in helping me with outreach for the next upcoming event. So I'm going to issue the press release today. I basically want to do all the same things we did before for the other workshop. I've already been in communication with the Reminder and the Gazette. They're going to be doing, putting information out there. I've already reserved the room and put it on the city calendar, but I'm going to do it in a more advertised way. I've got the flyer. Now that I have the flyer, I can do majority of those items that I wanted to do before. So that'll be huge. But I guess the big pieces that I was hoping to get help for was attendance of the Easthampton Community Center food distribution efforts again. And we did that a lot last time. I think we ended up getting diminishing returns after a while. So I don't think we would do it as much as we did before, but I'll send out a schedule of when those dates are. And if anyone wants to come, that'd be great. Yes.
Do you happen to know how many people came because of finding out about it there?
I didn't really have it in a way. All I could track was how many we handed out, and we handed out quite a few. So, and we got paper surveys that got done, and definitely it helped us with the survey more than anything, I'd say. In terms of attendance, it's really hard to tell if they came because they saw it there or if they got wind of it some other way. So I don't really know how else, because all that was just handing them the flyer.
Right.
So, so it's attendance at that. And then the other piece would be canvassing again. So that's going up and down Union Street and Cottage Street and handing out flyers to business owners. If people are willing to do that again, that would be incredibly helpful.
I wish we had a better way to get businesses to come.
I'm going to reach out to the Chamber of Commerce. And then I know EDIC, we talked to you guys before in the past, but I don't know if you have any other means of it, but
yeah, but I'll bring it tomorrow.
Okay. What would be super helpful is if some EDIC folks could plan to come to the meeting, to the workshop, because then you can help us kind of craft what actions you guys, I know you were saying, I was busy when you were talking about it earlier, but just kind of casually that EDIC is really interested in these kind of initiatives. So if you guys could come to the meeting, then we can help avoid, overlap in terms of the EAC's efforts and the EDIC's efforts, and things like that. Because we don't want people to get confused about who's the main public body for things like this or what is behind these efforts, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I think it would be, if anyone can find the time, it'd be great. Or just submitting comments too, just written comments once we have the draft and all that stuff out there. Because we're going to record it. So that's another way people can be involved afterwards if they can't attend the event itself. And what else was I going to say? Other events I was going to try to do, like we could have people go to the farmer's market. We could have people go to potentially this turkey run that they're going to do on Thanksgiving morning.
Oh.
So I know that's not hard for pretty much everyone to do, but I haven't gotten a hold of the woman who runs the Easthampton Community Center because they run that event. But I don't know if anyone else knew of any other events I should try to go to, but it's a pretty wide net we're doing, I'd say still. So if we can't think of anything, just last time we did like cultural chaos, we attended that, and the other one we would Mill Pond Live. But if there isn't a similar event, I don't think it's the end of the world because we do pretty good.
We didn't get emails from people who attended or some other
We did.
record.
We have emails from folks who, we had a sign-up sheet, but we also have the emails from people who did the survey.
So we can hit them with
Yes,
this.
directly.
And I'm starting to think that after all the incredible outreach efforts to have 20-something, 30 people, 20 if you don't count staff, at that meeting was it was a good meeting, but it was not a very good return on investment of effort. And I'm wondering just word of mouth stuff that people can do. First of all, you start with the group who attended last time.
Yeah.
Try to get them back, ask them to talk to their friends. We talk to people we know. I bet you you should get more returns doing that than, I don't think I want to walk up and down
That's fair.
Main Street and Cottage Street again.
Right.
I think
What
that's
about
quite fair.
hanging out outside the market the weekend before?
Yeah.
Big E's and Big Y?
Oh, sure.
Because I agree with you that I think the putting up flyers, I'm not sure how useful that was, but being in a position where you can talk to people and say, we're doing this thing, here's the information about it, might be more effective.
I'll reach out.
I talked to probably 50 business owners in the course of the day I was with you and the other time. So there was talk face to face.
Yeah.
I'm thinking flyers is an easy way. If you can find good locations for them, that's an easy way, low investment of energy.
I'm not saying not to do it.
Get the word out,
but-
people see them, some people might react to them, and then what does it cost you? Maybe a couple hours.
At the very least, I was planning to do the laundromats again because that was identified as a good location for environmental justice communities to hit them, to get that at least to maybe potentially have it be seen. So yeah, I agree. I think there is like probably a nice
Does the
middle ground.
Chamber
Put
of
up some
Commerce have
flyers.
meetings, like regular monthly meetings?
I don't know. They certainly have a newsletter, but I don't know if they have meetings or not. I'm not as knowledgeable. So yeah.
And they did send something out about about the survey. Was it the survey or the meeting to their members?
Definitely. I tried for both, and I think,
I think they might have done both.
Yeah. Yep. I was planning to, now that I have the actual flyer, I was planning to send that all out to everybody. So yeah. But like tomorrow, I'll like blitz it. But okay, this is helpful. If it's okay with you guys, I'll probably just send an email being like, okay, here's like the actual outreach things that you guys could do, like a schedule. Anybody who wants to do any of them, that's great. But if no one can do any of them, we've still pretty good like tactics, I feel like. So yeah.
And where's the workshop gonna be? Sorry.
Same as last time, upstairs on the top floor. Start at 6 p.m. We're going to do recording it. We're going to provide food. We're going to have a virtual attendance option. We're going to have a childcare option so that there's activities for kids if people want to bring their kids. And I will post the recording on the website so people can watch it after and submit comments that way if they want. So, yeah.
Sounds good.
Question, I don't know when it's appropriate about the draft plan that they're.
Go for it.
Sure.
Well, that and the meetings with the city officials. I mean, city officials, it's important. It's a chunk that we have some control over as opposed to the general public and what they do. So I was wondering, did they come to those meetings having given something for the departments to chew on rather than what do you call it, a cold calling, sit down and tell me what you think about climate and what your department can do. Were they prompted with, here's some ideas, so something they can really chew over? That's one question about that. And then the other is I'm a little concerned about knowing so little about what they're developing until we see a draft of it, which is probably 75% of the way done with the project when they got to this point of distributing a draft. And is there any other kind of outline or substance, or description of the plan that we can see in advance of the draft? I mean, that's not a public draft yet.
No, I know.
When we're talking about the draft, you're talking about the one we would see later on in the month or September, whatever, at the end of the year. I'm just nervous that something's going to drop out of the sky. They're going to spend all their money, and if we wanted something else, it's kind of too late.
Yeah, no, I don't anticipate that will happen at all. So the first question that you had about how was the department heads prompted. So yes, they were sent with like a good kind of just summary of the types of questions they'd be asking them. And then Weston and Sampson had a prepared set of questions to ask them that were targeted. So I felt like the conversation was very fruitful. But no, we didn't give them like a draft ahead of time to look at. Yeah.
What departments participated?
Yep, so we had the police department, the fire department, DPW, the city engineer, the building department, and we're gonna get the city planner this week, tomorrow. And what was the other one?
The schools involved?
The school was a question mark of who would be the person, but that was the plan. And then I'm trying to see if the person who runs the community center would be interested or willing, but I know she's very busy. So it was pretty much almost every department.
And how long did the sessions run for you?
We blocked out about an hour, but some of them varied between how long they lasted. Yeah. But so then for your second question about what to expect for the plan. So one, in the scope, we were really detailed in the scope about what should be in the plan and what each action, like the layout of the plan and what each action should identify. Right. So I do feel like hopefully it doesn't totally come to you guys cold based off of that scope. The other piece would be that I don't anticipate that they will give us a draft and then really restrict your ability to make changes or ask for things to be edited.
I think what we got in the scope was a shell. And then it was a good shell, it was a framework, but in terms of substantive meat of what we think the city needs to do to get from here to there, and what are the obstacles, and that stuff was not in the scope. That's what they have to develop.
Exactly right.
I would just like to hear a little bit about it before it goes too far.
I would say that there, I think this came from maybe an email that you sent or something, right? There's the example climate action plans that you were encouraging us to review. Did you actually provide a few of those?
Yeah.
Are those written by them? That's what I was about to say.
No, I don't know that they were.
We should get Holding End over and find out.
Yeah.
They're ahead of us. We should see what they've done already. But
well, that's what I'm saying. We should look at what's, the prompt is to look at the existing ones and see and make notes and like see what we like and what we don't.
Which I haven't done yet.
Right.
So if you've got something that I read
a
like
few
this
of them.
one and this one, okay. So if you've got specific things that you want to highlight from that, like we can get that feedback to them in advance, like as they're putting the draft together, like, hey, take a look at this one. We really like this, the way this looked or what this addressed or how this was put together.
I'm wondering whether we need to have like maybe a separate meeting that maybe is an official meeting to like have those conversations about what we think of these plans. Just, I don't know. This is like the nitty gritty now we're talking about. And I don't know whether we all agree about what we think should be in the plan. I don't know, maybe we do, but we really haven't had that conversation among ourselves.
No, I mean, nor do we really have the wherewithal to do so, which is why there's a consultant putting this all together.
But we obviously can't do it ourselves, but I mean, if we're going to review it and then make changes, shouldn't we be having some conversations among ourselves about what we think should be in what we?
Well, I think we did that. I mean, we did that with them and amongst ourselves. The initial part of this as it was being rolled out.
Yeah, we did.
Right?
That's true.
And we can look at some of the other ones. I don't know, and I hesitate to put something concrete on the calendar that says, hey, we're all going to sit down and like review these 3 other climate action plans together and like
and we're not allowed to do a like a Google what do they call it, discussion board thing. That's not legal, right?
I mean, yeah, we can communicate via email and things like that. We can
I
have
thought we were
a
allowed
shared
to
document.
communicate all of us together. I thought that was considered against the open
It's
meeting plan.
only if we're like trying to like do something binding, right? And only if we're trying to discussing something that is like, we're advisory anyway, right? The only thing we don't have any mandate or ability to like pass a law or to change the town charter or to do,
Let's be a test
or to
case.
approve a planning or something, a development or something like that. Like that's not our purview. Our purview is to like consider energy matters and advise essentially the mayor's office and the city at large on those things. So, in carrying that out, like there's nothing that we can do that's going to materially affect anybody directly. So for that reason, like if we're discussing some stuff via email, like business or even like back and forth opinions about certain things, it's not a violation in that sense because we're not discussing like something, a voting matter,
right?
Or something that's going to be binding to.
So if that's the case, I don't have the ability to do this, but I would prefer to have something that I could just go to periodically and see what people are saying instead of millions of emails. That's just such a nightmare. Is there? Can we set something like that up so that those when we have comments, then you just put it on the it just ends up this long, gives us this long
Like
document
like Google Docs that you
on
can make
Google.
suggestions on. Or,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a way to do it so that you're part of the group that can access it. I'm sure you know.
I think I know what you're
feel
talking
so
about,
old right now.
No. No, I feel like I know what you're talking about. Let me see with Weston and Sampson, like how they would best want to share it. But yeah, I don't think that there's any like hesitation with sharing a draft with you guys. They want your input, certainly. So
there's
it's
this meeting
definitely
too.
not.
I didn't want to overlook that. The one that's coming up that we're trying to recruit people to.
Exactly.
I mean, that actually sounds like we're going to hear some substantive
Very much so.
options that we should evaluate and give feedback on. But it'd be
Yeah.
nice to actually not go in cold to the meeting and
Yeah.
Right.
suddenly try to absorb it off of the screen
Right.
and give an intelligent comment versus something we could have looked at in advance,
Yeah.
if that's at least for this committee.
Let me figure out what they have thus far, how far it is, if they have something that is like digestible, and go from there. But yeah, certainly that won't be, it's not like you're just gonna get one shot at it to look at it, in my opinion. I mean, my understanding at least is like, yes, as many of you can come to that workshop, that's awesome. But then also after they do the presentation of the workshop, you can email me comments or whatever. I'll try to get a draft of when I can, and then I'll email it to you guys and you can either respond back to me with your comments, or we can maybe set up the document that you're talking about, Connie. Yeah. And then the last piece is, yes, if you can find the time to kind of just choose a couple plans to look at, and see if there's things in them that you really like. That would be really helpful if you want to generate a little list of like, I generally like how this looked, or the layout of it
Have
was
you asked
great.
them about their Andover work?
Yeah, I know that we did originally, and we talk about it sometimes just in our quick meetings, like check-in meetings that we do.
It seemed to me they're a few months down the 6 months, something ahead of us, same consultant, same idea in their town, that would be one way they can give us a flavor of how they do their work, how they present it. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
I'm just making a note for myself here.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to see if there's a meeting coming in here after us at some point. Tell me. It's today, today's the 20th. Okay, yeah, I think we're the only thing, so I just want to make sure we have to clear out of here at a certain time.
Oh, yeah.
It does not appear that we have to. All right, so you're gonna try to get whatever information you can and circulate that to us if there's something that we can review in advance of the 7th.
Yeah.
People can also help get the word out about that workshop on the 7th, and hopefully, as many of us can be there as possible to participate in that. You said you got a press release going out today as well. About that. And based on what we can or can't see from Weston and Sampson in advance, maybe we can set up a document to discuss some things. Again, if we have, Andover plan or some other ones that we want to look at and offer comments on, Maybe we can create some sort of shared document to just sort of put, our thoughts into. It isn't going to be, a bunch of email threads back and forth. If anyone has some other ones that they want to share, I know, did we share a certain set of them besides Andover?
So what I had was this list that, it was the ones that I had gathered together from like the surrounding area when I was developing the scope with you all.
Right.
And then I also found a kind of a repository of them from this group of sustainability coordinators that I was made aware of. So they just have there's a ton in there. So it's just like, there's a ton of options. That's why it's hard to know where to start.
I mean, I would love to see some that were developed by Good Energy.
Weston Sampson.
I mean,
yeah, I know. Yeah. So many consultants, but yes.
Sampson. I mean, some of those must be theirs, right?
Yep. I will look out for that. I will ask them about that. I know when they first gave us the proposal and reached out, I think they provided some information about that, but I don't know if they gave us the full document.
Right.
So I can figure it out. And I'll let you all know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are these 70-page documents?
Sometimes they're
They're
big.
pretty big.
They can be.
That's why none of us have looked at them.
It's interesting because there can be kind of a range of how communities approach them. Some of them, they combine them with green infrastructure, hazard mitigation, or resiliency, and have all these other kind of extra, different elements. And ours is really focused in on the reaching net zero carbon emissions. But it is interesting to see how they approach the narratives and the kind of explanation, tailoring it to their communities and things like that. But even just the aesthetic look of it is interesting to hear people think, though it's not as important.
Because you have looked at these, do you have any that really struck you as, boy, this one is really nice and it fulfills our requirements?
I can't even think right now. I'm sorry that I can't even think of one, Connie. Oh my gosh, it's a good question. I looked at so many, but that was a while ago. So I'd be curious to see. What I want to do, honestly, is take a closer look at the group, the plans that were dropped into that sustainability coordinators group, because those I think are more recent. And time is, they're just everybody's kind of doing this right now. So I'd be curious to see what the more recent ones will look like, frankly. But I know
agree.
It's a good
That would be
question.
more useful,
So I'm looking back at your email from last week and then the link that was in there. So if you go to Cassie's email from the 14th, there's a link to the drive there, which has a bunch of the sample plans in it. There's Amherst, there's Dedham, there's New Bedford, there's North Adams, there's a Northampton thing, there's Salem.
Generally, I was trying to think of that's a huge smattering of communities, but then the question becomes well, maybe we should focus trying to look at ones that are kind of from around here, similar sized communities. Coastal's it might be very different in coastal. New Bedford's probably pretty different than what we would see in the Amherst one, but that could be interesting just to still look at. But
What's that?
And then there's
that's an email we got?
Email on the 14th. Yeah, it's the email that says next CAP community workshop. So it's information about that.
It's an email that I sent you.
Oh, you have all these attached to it?
Yeah.
Just to me, it's
So,
attached.
Get that far in it.
It's okay.
It's all right. I was just catching up on it before the meeting, the last couple of days as well. But there's also a link in that. So there's a link to the folder, which has a bunch of stuff in it. But then within that, there's also a link to a spreadsheet that has a list of a bunch of different municipalities and links to their stuff within that as well. So Bruce, you don't actually have that email, but I can forward it to Cassie as well. No, it's okay. You sent it to the three of us.
And did Cassie get it?
No.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
I'll forward it to Cassie.
Okay, thank you.
Why don't you, if you haven't already, include Cassie's email in or our emails with what you're sending to Cassie, so
Just to push it back to the top of your inbox, you mean?
No, so I know how to reach Cassie if she knows how to reach any of us.
So it's actually in the document I sent you guys.
Okay.
Per email.
Okay. All right. Never mind that. Never mind that.
Oh, so much. I know.
Yeah, I know. All right. So I just sent that to the two of you. I'm sending it now. So there are lots of links in there, and it's helpful too in the spreadsheet because you've got the date that they were done too, right? So that helps. So you can see that Andover and Framingham are kind of in progress, but they're from this year. The other ones are 2022. Some of them are even much older, a couple of them. But most of them are kind of within range of the past few years. So yeah, I can't expect everyone to read through all of this. But like,
I know,
Take a
yeah.
couple, take a look, and then start to see
Maybe we
what you
can talk
like.
to each other and each take one or two.
Yeah, divide and
kind of thing.
conquer, yeah.
So let's, so it's, maybe everyone, try to pick one or two. We can like message the group, and again, we'll see what you can get us from Weston and Sampson now, and then we can try to coordinate. At the next meeting, we'll have had the workshop. We'll have had a chance to maybe review some stuff, and then we can talk through. We can try to devote a little bit larger chunk of the meeting to that.
Okay.
To feedback around whatever we've got, or if it's not going to come, we're not going to have it till later than the January meeting to really like get all of our thoughts together. And we spent an hour today on electrification and heat pump plan, and maybe that's we'll have that as an area of focus for a future meeting. So we don't have to do like a separate session necessarily.
Gotcha.
But in the meantime, we can share some things, and maybe within that folder, you want to even just create a quick document that's just like a feedback or thoughts. Like everyone can just drop their quick, hey, I was reading through Acton and I really like this or something like that.
That's easy to do. Yeah.
And then just share that with everybody so that we can have access to it.
Absolutely.
That would be helpful. All right, we'll move on from that unless you have anything else, Cassie, for now.
Nope, that was it for me for the cap.
Okay. Try to speed run through these things. We'll talk about school bus electrification. It's my chance to go on record with an official apology to John that I was sort of slow getting back to you.
I was just trying to get back to them because they wanted me on Monday or Tuesday at their meeting.
I think their meeting today got canceled now, I see too. Yeah.
That was this one, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I copied you, at least you two. I don't know.
And then by the time I got,
Your
by the
email,
time I saw it, it was
I'm
over.
not sure.
So-
But Maren Goldstein, who was on the school committee, but no longer, not past this year, but who was on the finance committee and heard our presentation back in September, called and wrote and said they want us to come and do a presentation at the full school committee. And I had wanted to redo the PowerPoint before it goes to the school committee, have it a little more up to date with current information we have about options available. And that's one reason I didn't want to do it so quickly. And the other probably bigger reason was just that I think we had two people who are not particularly sympathetic out of three. I don't know if you count the mayor as one of the finance committee members and a voter on the school committee, potentially can make. Oops, I didn't be careful what I'm saying here. So anyway, there's not everyone was sympathetic, and sounded like we might have reason to think that some of the new committee members that are coming on might be possibly as or more sympathetic toward.
Who were the
taking
members
action.
of the finance committee previously when you went?
It was Cindy, Cindy Kay, I'm not saying her last name because I forget, and Megan.
Right.
Who's there again?
Megan Healy?
Megan Harvey.
And she was very enthusiastic.
Yeah,
And I spoke to her again.
Yeah.
She's really on board.
I actually wrote her to see what she thought about this question, whether to do it now or later. I didn't get an answer. Maybe she didn't want to go on record, but and the mayor and Maren Goldstein was there.
Okay.
So the mayor, Maren Goldstein and Cindy would not be on it. They were the ones who had, they weren't against the idea, but they were a bit skeptical, and Maren also particularly said he was concerned about committing to target dates for having this done, electrification done. Right. So anyway, I'm thinking January or sometime will be probably the first meeting. Probably try to talk to them and maybe through Megan or the mayor in December to say, can we get, or even sooner, can we get on the agenda for this in January?
Right.
The trouble, the concern I had is that there is a new bus grant round, but
when?
I think it was announced in September, applications due January 10th or something, but it's not a very promising one. They're looking at large school districts. They're looking at, school districts with poverty, significant poverty. I think we fall under the guidelines. You can work with a private contractor again to get grants through the private contractor. And so if we had, it's not out of the question that if we were able to hook up with Holyoke and Hilltown maybe Northampton, whatever, and as a joint application in conjunction with our contractor with Durham, that we could be in the running, particularly Holyoke and Chicopee are listed as prioritized districts, as is Springfield and West Springfield, but Chicopee is another vendor. Holyoke is Durham. So even if we had a shot and a pathway, we haven't, we need the school committee on board, then we meet with the other transportation managers and school committees, and that takes a few months. We're just not gonna have an application together. So that's why I felt it was okay to put it off to this.
So definitely okay to put it off. And then
That's all there is to say.
And then another question is, do we at some point consider like going to the collaborative to like talk to them about whether there's a pathway there with them?
Which one?
Well, the New Hampshire.
I did put in a call to them, and they were
Right.
doing some research as to whether,
I
I didn't
remember
call them
that,
back
yeah.
again yet.
Yeah,
He was
yeah.
gonna get answers as to whether they could do something like that.
Right.
Yes. But-
Yeah, 'cause I don't want to let that, I would like to keep that. And I think that's
Yeah.
a good option to keep
Yeah.
alive too, because I think they would be supportive generally and like, but, obviously we need a lot of buy-in from them to try to take something like that on.
Is that the Collaborative for Educational Services?
Yes.
Yeah,
So what we've
special ed
learned is
programs.
that collaboratives in other places actually run buses and like what Hamden County or Springfield.
Lower Pioneer
or
Valley,
Lower
yeah.
Pioneer Valley.
It's everybody.
So they have, in Hampshire County, they have nothing to do with busing for any of the school districts. Like that's not part of their support. Whereas in other places around the state, there are collaboratives or whatever that do that. So
But that might change.
bringing everything under their umbrella where they could push and like, be the one to go out for grants and things like that to try to bring some of this stuff in-house. I mean, it's a big change for them, obviously,
Well,
but
they don't look for efficiencies as other school places might. That's my personal
Yeah.
experience.
okay, interesting. Yeah, again, because I think
They've got
Is that in the direct services that they provide, you mean? Because they also they also run bids for commodities that are then shared, so presumably you're trying to get the best deal for the money for that.
Well, rather than all get together and have a single cafeteria purveyor, each school has a separate,
yeah,
I mean, that's just kind of an example.
indicative of that, yeah.
But is that on the collaborative?
No, that's a school
That's,
district.
yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah, well, we are up against the
You're gonna
inertia
have to do
there.
what they
Well, anyway,
always
it's
do.
partly the school
Go
districts
on
have to
your
like
own
pressure
inertia.
them or say, hey, we want you to like take this
It's
on.
a culture thing.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah, so that's what we'd be working at against with this too, a big sea change of the way things are now. But, we want to just try to, explore every avenue to, the assumption, and this is for Cassie's benefit, the assumption is that school bus electrification is going to happen, right? It's going to happen everywhere eventually.
But the kids are gonna die in the
But, well,
cold on the snow.
Right, well, but in the meantime, like, we want to be at the forefront of it, right? We want to make it happen.
I don't know, we walked to school when I was a kid.
Oh, God.
20 feet of snow.
Yeah.
Put the windows down.
All right. Still breathing diesel fumes.
Oh, Lord.
All right, thank you, John, for that, and we'll.
I'll talk to either the mayor or Megan about, see if they can shift that
Yeah.
onto the agenda for January, February, and start working after Thanksgiving, maybe on redoing the PowerPoint for that.
Okay, if you have trouble reaching Megan, let me know,
Yeah.
because I'm in touch with
Yeah,
her. She was
okay.
one of my rock star soccer volunteers, so.
Well, just do it then. If it
That's fine.
It sounds like you'll get quicker results.
Possibly, let
Yeah.
me know when you want me to go, to ask her.
Ask her anytime now
Okay.
about possibly January or February, as soon as they can get us on with the new committee.
Okay,
Maybe she'll be the chair too.
she might be, yeah.
Chair.
I mean, I would imagine to be one of those holdovers, and
Existing,
she
yeah.
seems like a good
Yeah.
possibility.
She's
It
very
could be Laura
impressive.
too, I don't know. But I also know, at least I have two new people. It's Linda Markey, I don't know her, but I do know Eric Guyette, also from soccer.
Yeah.
Who's the other this new member. All right, so let's talk electrical vehicle infrastructure for a second. Why don't I use this as an opportunity to roll in sort of the EDIC conversation, since that is one of their areas of interest. First off, though, do we have an update on the Mountain View school chargers? I know last we heard they were looking at trying to get those turned on.
They're up and running.
They're up and running.
Oh my God.
Yes, they're good to go. So yeah, big, huge thank you to, I think his name, Nick Bernier,
Yeah.
up in the school department.
That's
He's
exciting.
really did all the work to make that happen again. So it was awesome. It was great. He was able to do it really quickly and easily once it was financially sound to do so. So
Right.
yeah, it's exciting.
Did he enjoy it? I mean, was he happy about it or?
Yeah.
did he-
Oh no,
Good.
they're definitely bought in. Yeah,
Good.
it was definitely very like helpful, and he wanted to get it sorted out. So that's the
Yeah,
feeling I
good.
got at least. Yeah.
Does Steve know?
Steve who?
Steve Lindsay?
I don't know.
I'm not,
Steve Lindsay?
Steve Lindsay, yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
'cause
know if
he
he
said he
knows.
could drive his car over there and walk home. Right?
Oh heck yeah! Oh my god.
Yes.
I think, you could drive
Someone
there
should
and
tell
like
him.
walk in and get on the
No,
trails
it
and
is,
walk
yeah.
into the park and everything.
Hell
See, there's
yeah.
another avenue, like,
Yeah.
there's not gonna be any chargers in the park anytime soon.
That's
Right,
true.
right.
Use the park.
Oh my god.
How
Cool.
many are there?
What's that?
How many chargers are there?
I don't know. I should know that.
Maybe as many as 8.
I think
'cause
it's a
there's
good
like-
number.
Oh,
There's like 4 on the middle school side and 4 on the elementary
Yeah.
school side.
That sounds right. That sounds right. I can double
If I
check.
remember, there's 4 and
Yeah.
4. I'm there fairly frequently.
Yeah,
It's
I bet.
observational. And it's just like spots that like nobody parks in.
Yeah, yeah.
These are level
Yeah.
2.
yes.
They're level 2s, yeah. Yeah, I was talking earlier to, just like I have a neighbor who just had a level 2 put in their garage as well and got some of the incentives and whatever.
Cool.
So, fairly easy,
Nice.
but I mean, it didn't cover all the costs, of course.
Right.
Sure.
But as far as other things, so tell us about the discussion that's been happening with EDIC around this, or how it came up, or.
The people on the EDIC have, if this kind of carbon neutral has piqued their interest. And there are just some things the group seems to be really hot on. One of them is chargers, and including at rental properties. And then another thing they're really hot on is solar canopies. Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
Over
Yeah,
the parking lots.
Like River Valley.
Yeah, exactly. Right now, it's just, the group is kind of in a storming phase, the
Brainstorm?
norming.
Brainstorming, you mean? Brainstorming or some other kind of storming? I'm not sure.
There's some spirited discussions taking place about
Okay.
what's more important, what should come first, that kind of
Okay.
thing. And I think I know I mentioned the survey.
Yeah, go ahead.
Dave Kutcher has developed a survey to distribute to renters to find out about their interest in chargers and what their current situation is.
Didn't our survey ask that question?
I would say that
Well,
it
so
is.
Dave reached out to me a number of weeks ago, and he and I went back and forth for a while over the course of a day. Just like he was asking me about this, from my perspective on the energy committee. I was like, well, we just did this survey for the climate action plan. I was like, I eventually I shared with him
Good.
like the results of that. I said, hey, look at these pages, especially.
Excellent.
We're gonna start to see that sort of thing. So you guys haven't had a meeting since then. I know your meeting's tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping maybe I can show up for at least part of that.
Oh, that would be
online.
great.
Anybody else, who's interested in this from a
when is the
business
meeting?
perspective or?
Tomorrow at 4.
It's the Economic Development Industrial
Committee.
Committee.
Commission.
And where is it?
It's virtual.
Oh, it's virtual.
Virtual, yeah.
Okay.
So there's it's
So how
on the
does-
city website.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Posted where ours is. So I think it's 4 to 5 tomorrow. is the time?
Exactly.
Yeah. So 4 p.m. tomorrow is their meeting. They obviously, the mission of EDIC is to promote economic.
To make Easthampton
Yeah.
a good place for business.
Right. So a real focus on the business side. So it's interesting that you're taking on like the renter piece then.
I found I'm speaking on behalf of my committee, not my own personal views. It all kind of started when Tasty Top came up. And there was kind of dissent in the committee that Tasty Top was not good because it wasn't using renewables and it wasn't incorporating good practices it didn't require the incorporation of good practices in landscaping.
This is the old Tasty Top. and
No,
the new Tasty
you mean the
Top.
new development?
The new
behind-
development.
But maybe I guess technically the old one as
Tasty
well.
Top's really just the gateway to that whole area behind
They
it.
should have had chargers at the ice cream store.
So since then, the committee's gotten more and more interested and involved in energy issues.
Well, I think that point particularly, it would be very helpful if EDIC folks could come to the workshop, because one of the things that we're trying to highlight is that people can suggest actions such as changes to maybe some of the zoning ordinances,
Yes.
some of the requirements in that way, or potentially
Specialized stretch code.
great things like that. So that would be potentially, if we can get, documented support for this, and you can kind of get that in people's minds at that meeting.
Before you get too crazy,
Yeah.
Cassie.
Okay.
There are some members on EDIC who believe that we should not put up any kind of barrier to businesses in Easthampton.
Fair enough.
If they want to run gas through their fields, that's fine with us.
Okay.
Because business means money.
Well, if they could come and speak to their perspective at that meetings, that'd be helpful too. I think, frankly, honestly,
Yeah.
I think we need to look at the whole picture and consider both the sides when thinking about things like that, making changes in that way. It would be helpful maybe to identify an action. If we adopted the new stretch code, this is how it might be able to help us get to that, goal of net zero carbon emissions. But what is the offset? Potential
Right.
offset problems with that. So I don't know. I think it'd be helpful if everybody who had something to say for it or not against it could come. I think that'd be great. But I understand what you're
spread the
saying.
word.
Yeah, I definitely understand what you're saying.
So are there limitations by zoning in terms of the type of businesses that can go where?
I would think
Because
yes.
I've run into a situation,
Yes, I
I know
would
of a
think so.
situation like in Shelburne, Vermont, there's a limit to the type of businesses that can go on Route 7.
I see.
And they say no gas stations, but they consider EV stations as gas stations, so they won't.
Oh, huh. Oh, that's
Well,
very
it's probably about
interesting.
like promoting traffic in that area, right? It's beyond, which again, EVs are not polluting in the same way, so it's like, if congestion is an issue maybe, or, safety or something like that. I'm not trying to speak for, I'm actually just looking at our zoning map, helpfully posted right here on the wall.
Yeah.
Which shows all the different, zoning styles here, and like the highway business, which is the great fuchsia pink one there.
It's usually heavy industry versus just commercial, light retail stuff.
We have a special mill
Right, but
industrial.
you can see, we got a
mixed
central right
use.
mill, we got industrial, which is the
Industrial
area like off of O'Neill Street there.
Field.
That whole area,
The highway
Yeah,
business
we're getting off
zoning,
the
I
topic a
didn't
little
know
bit.
that even was a category.
Well, the devil's in the details. It's like what is
Right.
allowed in those.
Right, well, this is a question, because
Yeah.
Cassie also emailed me a question about another development off of Loudville Road, right, which is like a single residential,
Yeah.
which is now gonna be turned into like 14 or 15 units, condos and things like that, and like, her question was, is there any way to compel them essentially to have to put in heat pumps like that in this thing?
Well,
So-
once again, yes, especially if there already are new rules that went into effect because we're a green community. But if
I
the
thought we
city,
weren't agreeing.
no, we are.
We are a green
We are.
community.
Not the
special-
climate leader designation yet.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I know it's confusing. It's a
But,
lot.
I mean, so the notice codes are much stricter than the ones previously, but
All
the
these sarcasm.
specialized code which the
I
city
know,
has to
sorry.
opt into is even stricter in terms of how buildings have to be built.
Right.
So, yeah, so to your point about that, right there, that development is purely like the stormwater management. It's kind of where Tasty Top is as well, right? They're not actually, they may have some preliminary designs for the building, but they're not running like actual energy studies, and they're not looking at, they're not so concerned, they're not measuring that up to code yet with that, because the first you gotta make sure is it gonna have stormwater, it got traffic impacts, like that's the big holdup with Tasty Top too, is like, butters and like, making sure everybody's on board and they can make it, do this safely and it complies with all the various planning stuff and zoning, right? Then, once the buildings are being designed and built, then they're gonna have to comply with energy code to get through like DOB certification. And I think DOB has signed up on the energy code. And things like that, right? Department of Buildings,
I don't really know.
the city engineer, whatever, I don't know. But something along those lines. So, right, so that's a later part of the process once you're getting into the actual like full-on design.
So is that where we would start to insert?
Well, I mean, you would do, yes, and you have to do that with the code, right? The building codes themselves and the energy code, so.
Yeah, I don't think a city can arbitrarily say you can't build this unless you put in heat pumps.
Right.
It goes back to what the rules are that have been established based on the state requirements.
Right.
And you know, we're at a certain level, we could get at a higher level. One of the things at the higher level is that all buildings be wired for electricity, even if they're still using fossil
Right,
fuels.
Northampton does that, right?
Well, they
They
just adopted this opt-in,
Starting in January.
specialized code. Yeah, but.
All right, municipalities can opt into this extra level if they're a green community already, and then it has to pass through, again, city council or whatever legislative body to approve it, and then that takes effect, and that goes for any new construction or any significant renovation.
Like major
Major gutting,
renovation,
gut renovation type thing. So that's where you could compel a developer to, again, you can't specify specific products, right? It's just like, you just have to meet this level of efficiency.
But also the
And
size
so
effect.
to be able to do that, they would then have to choose the most efficient products
Yeah.
or the most efficient design.
It's possible that what they're
right, to do all
contemplating
that.
building, because of its size, might already have to be a passive building with the new building codes. But certainly with the specialized code, I think, because they're gonna build a pretty big building, right?
At Tasty Top, that's,
Yeah.
there's a
It's not
big commercial
So
stuff.
it's very
like a
possible
small
that,
city.
especially if we can get the opt-in code passed, it would have to become basically a passive structure.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it would be interesting too, potentially if at this next workshop, potentially people could talk about, you know, if we don't want to if people are kind of put off by doing the whole new best opt-in stretch code, maybe there's just smaller pieces of the ordinance that we could change, or potentially put on like a tree ordinance, like Northampton has a tree ordinance, which
But that's separate. from
it would be
building
separate.
codes.
It would be
Yeah.
separate, but it would help put some kind of parameters on trying to save, or the type of clearing that can happen. Like for this new Loudville housing project, that's going to be quite a number of trees removed, I would think.
Mhm.
And part of the things that people were set about with Tasty Top was some of the tree removal that was being required for that project. And the farmland loss, yes, that's another one.
And the
Farmland.
traffic.
And the traffic. So, but farmland and trees specifically, you can make an argument those have some kind of role to play in terms of climate action and open space and things like that. So
Absolutely.
we have an open space and recreation plan, but we don't yet have many ordinances to help us make sure, like, kind of work in tandem with that, if that makes sense. So if we can get potentially, if there is interest shown in things like that identified in the climate action plan, that gives the city more support to actually go for making those changes, if it makes sense.
There is a woman in Northampton who tried to get Easthampton involved in developing a tree canopy program. Like there's a federal organization that you can join. And she was taking a course or something, and we actually chose a section of Easthampton and went around and just surveyed what all the trees were in that area, and got that data. But I do feel like, and this is just my observation, that we are losing a lot of our tree canopy in Easthampton, what with one thing and another. I mean, part of it is trees do die, and especially if you have really old gas pipes in the ground. There's probably a lot of gas in the soil in Easthampton because we have such old pipes, and that kills trees. But I think it would be great to establish a tree canopy program. I mean, that's a huge piece of keeping things from getting too hot.
So yeah, things like that. Go ahead.
We've got 3 items left on the agenda, and I don't want to be here till 6.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I don't either.
Focus
This is all
as much
does
as we can.
tie together. I just wanted to,
Yeah.
I want to make this connection with EDIC,
Sure.
number one. Number two, to also figure out, like, you know, where we want to push, because the opt-in stretch code is, you know, from an energy standpoint, you know, around this, like, that's the clearest path towards, you know, increased sustainability.
Do you want to move on to that topic?
Well, let's talk a little bit more about it.
Well, basically, I can tell you, just from my point of view, as you know, I'm hoping it'll get passed, but I have been in touch with Salem Derby. I had a really wonderful meeting with him. I made a whole PowerPoint. I expected to have to like convince him, and he was like, "Oh yeah, because I'd sent him some stuff in my email. I read what you said. I'm totally on board. Let's do it." I was like, "Oh, okay." So I did. So the meeting didn't last that long, but he said that in order for it to get passed First of all, he needed a letter asking him to present it to the city council. So I did send him a letter with some input from you guys, thank you. And I haven't heard back from him. So that's where it stands. But he told me he definitely will present to the city council. Then the city council sends it to a subcommittee that then makes a recommendation about whether or not they should adopt it. So that's sort of the process.
The ordinance committee?
I think it is the ordinance committee, yeah. I think it is the ordinance committee.
So we had to do with aggregation too, to go through the ordinance committee first and then.
Which he's on, which is a good thing.
Were you able to talk to the building department at all about this?
I didn't talk to them because I decided I wanted to just see where we were with it, what the general feeling of the city council was. He says that he thinks it's it's something that people will be positive about. So I didn't talk to them.
Okay. Yeah. The only reason I bring that up is because we talked about it at the interview that we did with Weston and Sampson. That was a big piece of our discussion, was because that would be very impactful to the building department, is if this code was adopted.
Well, I imagine I imagine just the changes, the updates that have been made since January have had a huge effect on them.
Potentially, yeah. So that's kind of the main thing that she highlighted. The building commissioner, BJ Church, highlighted that she's very much isn't against these kind of making these changes towards, energy efficiency, but her concern and what she's seen in other communities and here is confusion amongst contractors and builders and homeowners and things like that of like, what is the code? How do you actually meet it? What are the rules about it?
Right.
There's potentially already there's some disconnect in terms of, the permits get reviewed by the fire department, but then they're using an updated code for certain things like with solar panels, whereas in her department, they don't have the most updated code for that. Not that it's something that they're not willing to get, it just hasn't been released for them for approving the permits. It's confusing. Yeah. That's the main point of it.
Well, I do know that DOER has been running workshops to try to give people the information. And I do, because I attended one of them. It is very complicated, especially because I don't know that much about construction, but I mean, there is a lot to take in and figure out. There's no question about it.
I think she was very keen about trying to figure out a way to make sure that we're actually reaching out to contractors to make sure that they get what they need to do so that they're not blindsided and they understand what needs to be, but also this power device. Oh, I ran out of, I have to plug this in. I'm going to take it so it's not on the TV anymore, if that's okay with you guys, but the battery's dying. But it's still recording and we don't have to project on the screen, so it should be fine.
Yeah.
Anyways, just really quickly, so she was like, if there was a plan in place to try to help educate local contractors, but also other, her department generally, but then get some kind of synchronicity, it should be well planned, I think was the overall notes that I would say, but I would very much encourage still to get their input, her input, because she's the one who's gonna have to be enforcing it and making it happen. So
well, I'd be interested to know whether she's already finding it difficult.
I would say that is the case. Yes. Yeah, okay. Yes. And so she had concerns about
because of the newly updated code.
Yeah,
kind of, but also, because my understanding is there's the people who haven't adopted any stretch code, then there's the stretch code, then there's there's the opt-in specialized, but is there another one beyond that?
No, well, there's a basic code that very few communities in Massachusetts use, but there is a very basic code.
Right.
Because the handful that are not green communities.
Because almost every community is now a green
300 out of 350 or something.
So most communities are now using, it's just an updated code. It's just like we had a code before, they've updated it.
Yeah.
But it's dramatically updated compared to the previous code. And then there is an opportunity to opt into a code that has other kinds of restrictions that the code that we're using right now doesn't have.
Right. And I'm not saying we need to, thank you for explaining that. And not saying we need to get in all details now. I'm just saying we should talk to her.
All right, I will. What's her name?
Her name's BJ Church.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. Very knowledgeable, but she's concerned about it for sure. So I think there is a right way to go about pursuing this, but it's.
Yeah, and I don't know what resources the city could fine to have to do, I mean, like, we should probably be running a series of workshops for contractors.
Yeah, we could put that in, maybe in, not to miss my answer to everything, but climate action plan.
I think that should be
Yeah.
in the climate
Grants.
action.
Let's
Green
get a
communities
grant.
grants, exactly. So, yeah, sorry.
Fund an energy manager position
Yeah.
and
I
manage
know.
an aggregation program and run community workshops for landlords and contractors and
Right.
everybody who wants a heat pump.
Yeah, I know, my
Up in the
God.
School.
Yeah.
There's so much we do, but to a point that came up in a conversation I was having yesterday, without like for a town like this, for our revenue base to grow, like we have to have some of these new developments happen, right? We kind of have to have like Tasty Top and like Lava, because other than that, like if we need extra money for schools or for electric school buses, or we need extra money like the parks department's on, a shoestring, and people want to do more stuff there. Or we want to fund like an energy or sustainability position or something like that. Like that money, has got to either you raise taxes or you increase the tax base, and that's always the tension, right? Is like how to do all that and not do it in a way that ruins the character of the town, but also like and we're running out of places to develop stuff.
Right.
It's not a lot of free space. So. But anyway, all right. So I wrote down the Jonathan Wright and Mass Save thing too, and I'm trying to remember what that's about.
Well, he's a contractor, well, you should talk about it.
He did a couple of talks at Audubon.
Right.
And as a result, revolving around some of the stretch code new issues, and really pushing, utilizing Mass Save as sort of the first step.
Oh, right.
Getting people
That's right.
involved. So, he seems pretty generous with his time. I think if you were wanting to have somebody to talk about these issues and maybe how to get this implemented with contractors, there might be somebody who would be willing to kind of discuss that and offer maybe some insights on how to get that done. Because I could see where there's a lot of confusion for people who are actually trying to do it, and the timing of the whole issue. Like, well, I applied for this permit and this code wasn't in place. Do I now have to meet this code? Because I just gave my clients a budget number and now it's 20% more because it has to meet all these codes.
Right.
So it is a tricky situation.
So what were you saying about Mass Save? Mass Save is in a position to provide input about
They
this?
do a lot of outreach, and Jonathan was really pushing the whole weatherization, how to make.
Oh, okay, so we're not talking about the code now, we're talking about.
Well, it's like what the first step is.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Code's great, but on the same time, you got all these existing buildings, right? And like
Right, so
that's
the
where you
code
really need to focus.
it really is only about new construction.
Right.
They're two very different issues,
Yes.
not that they aren't both important, but they're just different.
And
Yeah.
Jonathan was saying, you really got to upgrade the buildings that exist,
Right?
because it can't all be about new construction.
And that gets back into some of the EDIC stuff too, where you're talking about businesses and like what they can do, and if we want to incentivize them in some way to do, electric chargers, or even just to go take advantage of like weatherization and like electrical efficiency upgrades, and those sorts of things, and like how do we mandate that? Like what's the sort of carrot and stick piece with that, or get everybody bought in? So yeah, it all kind of lends around itself. I don't know that we have a whole lot of concrete action items for this stuff right now, other than maybe to and anybody wants to sit in EDIC meeting tomorrow.
What is it?
4 o'clock.
4 to 5, yeah.
You don't keep it to an hour, which is that your whole agenda. I saw their agenda. I was like, wow, they got every 5 minutes mapped out here.
Wow,
That's
just like us.
just like not just like us. So yeah, I'd be happy to hear what has to say, and maybe conversation and figure out how we can support each other, or again, starting with the climate action plan piece. I think that would be a good first step.
Cool.
All right. Anything on the green community?
All I'll
grant
say is,
proposal or annual report?
I'm working on the annual report. It's due December 1st. I feel like I'm going to make it, but yeah, that's pretty much the only thing I have to say is I'm working on it. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. And we've talked around some potential, grant opportunities. I think let's let some of these other things play out. Let's get more of the climate action plan
Right.
finalized, and also the P pump electrification plan with Mass CEC.
Yep.
again, I think we got a few different options, and we're looking at like an April due date for a grant application, April or May.
I think so. I have to double check. Yeah, sorry. It's kind of
That's
like,
okay.
I've just been a little flat out with all these other things, so. But yeah, no, I agree. It will be something we pursue again,
Yeah,
probably in
yeah, for
spring.
sure. And I think, see where we're at come January. Probably.
Yeah, we'll have the plan by then. We should be able to,
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Figure out what's
it's crazy, yeah.
What's a generally reasonable amount of money to expect in that?
I really don't know.
You don't know.
There's some that are prescribed and there's a set limit that you can get, like we did with the vehicles.
Right,
You note the max you could get was 15,000,
right,
whereas, or maybe it was just 7,500 per vehicle. I can't remember.
yeah,
But there was certainly a max, whereas there might be, the type of grants you can go for might be changing also. But
You
then
mean in next year, in January?
potentially, I need to look at the most recent, like, they call it a PON, but it's PON, that just
Right.
is like the grant application, and you can look at it and it outlines all the things you can go for, if that makes sense. I need to see what the most recent one has in there,
Okay.
because they did make this climate leader change, so that might impact it.
All right. Well, we'll circle back around to that
Okay.
once we get through more of this other stuff, see where we're at with aggregation and other pieces.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right, so, anything else that we haven't covered anybody wants to discuss
Solar
today?
forum report.
Yeah, it was like, there was that multi-day solar forum, it was over in Amherst, and like, we talked a little bit about it last time.
Did we?
They dropped the last session and said they'd reschedule it. And didn't.
Right.
Oh, right.
That was what I
And
heard
there's the
last
phase
time.
2 is the public participation, more in person, take it to the next level. Discussions supposed to happen in the spring.
Okay,
Okay,
I heard nothing.
all right,
interesting.
yeah.
But there's a lot of good PowerPoints and resources.
Yeah.
If you don't have them, you probably register and get on the page and get access to them, but
Yeah, I think I registered, so I think I
Bunch
have
of them.
access to it.
good ones,
Mhm.
interesting ones.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah, I mean, solar's something we haven't touched on too much, and I know for business, that's another thing, potentially, they're trying to get more people to do it, but, solar ordinance thing has kind of dropped off, and I don't know where we're at with that. And there's this whole views.
Is that on your
committee thing. I
webpage? I'd
still
like to
haven't
see
heard
what it is.
Not a single
To see what it is
meeting
again.
of that
Or
yet.
do they
I don't
like bury
know.
it somewhere?
I don't know, because I don't know that we ever got.
Okay.
All right, so-
Big meeting, guys.
Yeah.
We did it. Whoa.
When's our next one? 18th?
Next one is
Yes.
on the 18th, yeah, December 18th, same time, 3:00. Google Meet info all stays the same, we've got that at least one more hybrid. Again, I think, we're all here in person, which is great, but I think we'll try to keep continuing to do the hybrid because it does allow folks like Mass CEC and Good Energy and whoever that might need to join us to do so easily, so. We're just gonna keep that rolling and, see you here, so. No other business, then look for a motion to
I move we adjourn.
Second?
I'll
Second it.
second it.
All right, second. Motion and second.
First official act.
All in favor?
Aye.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.